Beijing formally appoints John Lee as the next chief executive. Study finds only a quarter of the land next to Fanling Golf Course suitable for building homes. And new COVID infection cluster is identified in hotel in Central. Good evening and welcome. Word tonight, Premier Leung Chunsang has presided at the State Council meeting today and endorsed John Lee as Hong Kong's sixth-term chief executive.
John Lee will be taking office on July 1st. The Premier's endorsement came 12 days after John Lee won the chief executive election on May 8th as the sole candidate. We'll have more on this in the late news.
In other news tonight, some 32 hectares of land from the Fanling Golf Course are expected to be returned to the government next year for housing development.
However, the latest environmental assessment suggests only a quarter of that area is suitable to build homes on. Sources say the Town Planning Board will discuss the matter next month.
In September 2023, some 32 hectares of land on the golf course site east of Fan Cam Road will be resumed by the government to build public housing. After 2 years of work, a technical environmental study suggested that only 9 hectares of land here, around half the size of Victoria Park, are suitable to build homes on. The report said in some areas, mammal species of conservation importance, such as the leopard cat and small Indian civet, were identified. That's on top of some 80 rare and endangered trees. Some areas were classified as having medium to high ecological value. Although the area for development has been reduced, that doesn't change the number of homes expected to be built. Initially, the Development Bureau proposed to develop the 32 hectares of land using the 7:3 public to private housing ratio and estimated there will be 4,000 public homes. But the authorities backtracked last year, saying the land should be used entirely to develop public housing. In the latest technical study, the report suggested building 12,000 housing units, which can accommodate 33,600 people. That means the residential properties could be more crowded than initially intended. Authorities also plan to build commercial and community facilities, as well as cycling paths and public transport interchanges near the area. Basic infrastructure is expected to be in place by 2029 at the latest. As for the remaining 23 hectares of land with conservation value, it will be used for recreation and conservation purposes. 4 years ago, the Hong Kong Golf Alliance, which has now disbanded, strongly opposed the resumption of the site, saying it would affect international golf tournaments. Golf coach Leung Chunsang thinks the government should shelve the resumption at this moment if only a small part of land can be used to build homes. Meanwhile, the Liberal research community, which has been supporting the development plan, slammed the suggestion to develop the site with higher density as it would sacrifice people's living environment.
Hong Kong reported 243 new COVID infections, including 26 imported cases.
Health authorities suspect a mutant strain is being spread from the Lang Kwai Fong Hotel at Khao Yu Fong in Central, where a couple who were quarantined there possibly are infected by their hotel neighbors. Health officials fear the variant has already spread into the community. Timothy Lee has more.
The latest outbreak occurred at Lang Kwai Fong Hotel at Khao Yu Fong, which is located in Central. A married couple arrived from San Francisco on May 3rd and had undergone quarantine at the hotel. The couple returned to their home at Shau Kei Wan after they finished their quarantine. The 64-year-old wife began showing COVID symptoms, such as a runny nose, last Thursday. The woman was found to have a high viral load. The couple were tested at a community center last Saturday, their 12th day back in the city, and the results came back positive with traces of the BA.2.121 variant. After further investigation, authorities found a father and son from Nepal living above the couple at the hotel were also infected. A gene sequencing analysis revealed the two carry the same variant as the couple. Center for Health Protection officials, accompanied by government advisor Professor Yoon Kwak-young, visited the affected hotel today. They believe there is a vertical transmission on the premises. Yoon said the virus may be transmitted at the hotel through a leak in the drainage system. The 11 locations visited by the infected couple have been listed as specified places requiring compulsory testing, including several eateries in Shaokei-wan and Taikoo. Meanwhile, infection clusters around the city continue to expand, with 10 more students and 2 staff members newly infected in the Benchmark Training Center in the Western District. Kuntang's Imperial Kitchen cluster has reported another infection, raising the total number to 30 people. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
2 scientific committees under the Center for Health Protection have suggested adults aged between 18 and 59 should consider receiving their 4th COVID vaccine dose if they have never been infected.
Meanwhile, the city's health chief says the vaccine pass scheme is necessary, adding it is appropriate that some health academics called for an exemption for those aged below 60. Christy Khan reports.
The scientific committees under the Center for Health Protection and the government's health advisory panels held a meeting yesterday to discuss the feasibility of administering the 4th COVID jab to adults aged below 60. After the meeting, they gave interim recommendations. They said individuals in the age group who have never caught COVID but are at relative high risk of coronavirus exposure should consider taking the 4th jab. The interval between the 3rd and 4th doses should be at least 6 months. But Dr. Leung Chunsang, a respiratory specialist, said the 4th dose can only offer limited protection for a short period of time.
If we want to use it to among those with a high level of virus exposure in high-risk settings, we need to bear in mind that the protection is limited. For example, it only reduces the infection by about 50%. It cannot be relied upon as an infection control measure.
He said very few countries are recommending young adults to take the 4th dose at this stage. Meanwhile, Secretary for Food and Health Sophia Chen rejected suggestions made by 2 academics from the University of Hong Kong that the authorities should drop the vaccine pass requirements for young adults. Writing in the Mingpao newspaper, the health secretary said the vaccine pass helps build a strong immunity barrier against COVID-19 in Hong Kong. She added dropping the scheme for those aged under 60 is unfair to those who have received the jabs. Furthermore, Professor Yuen Kwok-yong, a microbiologist from the University of Hong Kong, agreed with Chen's view. He said the vaccine pass requirements can only be dropped if the city reaches a 95% vaccine take-up rate. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The University of Science and Technology's council has unanimously approved the appointment of Nancy Ip as the next president of the university. The council said Professor Ip, a leading neuroscientist, was the sole candidate. Since 2017, she's been a deputy in the National People's Congress. Professor Ip has been elected to the Chinese Academy of Sciences since 2001, having published over 260 research papers. She's set to become the university's first female president in the school's 31-year history. Current president, Professor Wei Xiaoyi, will step down on October 19th. President Xi Jinping has made a video address at the opening session of the Brics foreign ministers meeting, during which he urged Brics countries to accommodate each other's core interests and major concerns.
Xi also called on Brics countries to reject the Cold War mentality. Caleb Leung has details.
The meeting of the Brics countries' foreign ministers was held via video link on Thursday, with President Xi Jinping delivering an address. In his speech, Xi said seeking one's security at the expense of others will only create new tensions and risks. Xi said Brics countries should accommodate each other's core interests and major concerns and respect each other's sovereignty, security, and development interests. He added that Brics countries should oppose power politics, reject Cold War mentality and bloc confrontation, and work together to build a global community of security for all. Brics, an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, refers to an association of 5 major emerging economies. State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who chaired the meeting, said China is proposing to start the process of expanding Brics. Wang also commented on the Ukraine crisis, saying that the delivery of weapons cannot bring peace to Ukraine, while sanctions and pressure cannot solve the European security dilemma. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Still ahead on tonight's news. Joe Biden meets leaders of Finland and Sweden in support of their bid to join NATO. And why it's a good day to tie the knot in Hong Kong today. Welcome back to TVB News. The U.S. Senate has overwhelmingly approved $40 billion in new military, economic and food aid for Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden's quick signature is expected.
It is by far the largest U.S. aid package to date, and the White House says more help is on the way. As the invasion nears the 3-month mark, more U.S. aid could be on its way to Ukraine. In addition to what will be coming from the $40 billion package approved by Congress, the U.S. has announced a shipment of $100 million in military equipment to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the United States for the aid, describing it as not just an expense or a gift, but a contribution to security. He also thanked the European Union for its support. Zelensky went on to say the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine has been completely destroyed. General Staff said today Russian forces are stepping up their assault on the industrial region. British military intelligence says more Russian forces will likely be redeployed to the Donbas once it secures the southern port city of Mariupol. After a lengthy siege, Kyiv ordered its garrison at a steelworks in the city to stand down. More than 1,700 defenders of the Azovstal steel plant have surrendered this week. The wounded were given medical treatment. Those who were fit were taken to a penal colony. The International Committee of the Red Cross is working to register the soldiers to ensure their humane treatment as prisoners of war under the Geneva Conventions. But many senior Ukrainian commanders remain at the plant.
Слава Україні! Сьогодні 85-й день війни.
In an 18-second video, a deputy commander with the Azov regiment defending the steelworks said, "An operation is underway, the details of which I cannot disclose." Meanwhile, in the first war crimes trial held by Ukraine, a 21-year-old member of a Russian tank unit told a court in Kyiv that he shot a 62-year-old Ukrainian civilian in the head on orders from an officer. He apologized to the victim's widow who saw the killing. She told the court that the Russian deserves a life sentence, but that she wouldn't mind if he were exchanged as part of a swap for the Azovstal defenders. Well, U.S. President Joe Biden has hailed the momentous applications of Sweden and Finland to join NATO in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But whether the historically neutral countries can actually join the defensive alliance remains unclear, as opposition from NATO member Turkey remains. Alan Buckner reports.
The leaders of the two Nordic countries traveled to Washington, where President Joe Biden expressed his optimism for their applications to join the alliance.
Today, I'm proud to welcome and offer the strong support of the United States for the applications of two great democracies and two close, highly capable partners to join the strongest, most powerful defensive alliance in the history of the world.
The applications mark an embarrassment for Russian President Vladimir Putin. He has demanded that NATO stop expanding towards Russia's borders, but his invasion of Ukraine changed everything.
President Niinistö and I have come here at a historic moment for our countries and for Sweden. After 200 years of military non-alignment, Sweden has chosen a new path. Russia's full-scale aggression against a sovereign and democratic neighbor, that was a watershed moment for Sweden.
Russia's war in Ukraine has changed Europe and our security environment. Finland takes the step of NATO membership in order to strengthen not only its own security, but also in order to strengthen wider transatlantic security.
Offsetting that optimism is lingering opposition from NATO member Turkey. President Recep Erdogan's objections stem from Sweden and Finland's perceived support of Kurdish rebels, which Turkey labels terrorists. Finland's president says discussions on the matter are ongoing.
Finland has always had broad and good bilateral relations to Turkey. As NATO allies, we will commit to Turkey's security just as Turkey will commit to our security.
Erdogan also accuses Sweden and Finland of harboring followers of Fethullah Gulen, a U.S.-based Muslim cleric who the Turkish government blames for a 2016 attempted military coup. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
Well, meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has arrived in South Korea on his first visit to the country as president. His trip to Asia begins with a focus on the U.S. tech sector. He'll tour a Samsung computer chip plant that will serve as a model for a semiconductor factory that the Korean electronics company is building in Texas. The country's new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, and Samsung Electronics vice chairman will accompany Biden. The U.S. and South Korean leaders are also expected to discuss North Korea's nuclear weapons and missile program as that nation struggles with a COVID-19 outbreak.
Renowned Greek composer Vangelis has died at the age of 79. He was best known for composing the uplifting theme music for the Oscar-winning 1981 film Chariots of Fire. Vangelis also composed music for NASA's explorations to Jupiter. Vangelis said his style was inspired by exposure to Greek folk songs and Orthodox Christian choral music. His Chariots of Fire theme was performed by actor Rowan Atkinson, or Mr. Bean, at the opening ceremony of the London Olympics in 2012.
Australians will go to the polls tomorrow following a 6-week campaign that focused on pandemic-fueled inflation, climate change, and concerns over a Chinese military outpost being established less than 2,000 kilometers off Australia's shore. Surveys released Wednesday show Prime Minister Scott Morrison's Liberal National Coalition narrowly losing to the centre-left Labour Party. The rising cost of living has dominated the final stretch, with voters rating it as the most critical issue, but they also point to Morrison's personality.
He treats people with disdain and derision. He speaks over people. He doesn't listen to people. He doesn't learn. He has a lie and excuse for every single thing.
I'm looking to see what I should use. Like keep the devil I know or the devil I don't know. And I think I'm going to go with the devil I know.
Today is May the 20th, and the date sounds similar to I love you in Putonghua. That's why it's a favorite date for getting married. And so, 402 couples in the city tied the knot today, a record high on the same day for the last 4 years. Those arriving to marriage registries today had to scan the Leave Home Safe QR code before entry. Staff members said they can only handle 23 registrations per day, with each wedding ceremony limited to 15 minutes. Although the government eased some social distancing measures, many wedding ceremonies remain simple, with some citing that the pandemic remains a concern. Among the 402 couples, 136 wedded at the marriage registry and 263 hired civil celebrants. That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.